Hello, this is Joe Yuhan here to show you guys the pelvic rotation roll and reach exercise. And so this is a exercise or a stretch that is going to open the internal and external rotation of the pelvis. I'm going to show you first, then we'll talk through why this is important. So you want to have a roller of some kind. It could be long, it could be short, or it could even be a ball. And it's going to go between your legs on your side. And so what you do, you're just kind of bigger than 90 degrees, and you're going to, very simply, with the roll between your knees, you're going to reach forward with the top knee and reach back. Both the hip, the femur bone, and the pelvis are going to be doing relative rotations on one another. And depending on what's stiff on you, you may feel different things in different positions. But I'm reaching forward towards you and back towards the fireplace. That's the front view. Rear view, reaching forward towards the fireplace. And so I'm getting an external rotation opening here on the left and an internal rotation on the right. And then I reverse that. So now my pelvis is coming back towards you for the opposite motion. So now we're going to show you the above view. It's a small movement, but more visible from above. And so again, just under or bigger than 90 degrees, reaching the top leg forward and then rolling it back. You may want to hold a few seconds to feel the stretch. You can also adjust the angle and try going closer to 90 degrees. Or going a little bit bigger, more like 135 degrees. So this is the pelvic rotation roll and reach exercise, and the reason it's so useful and the reason this movement is so important is because pelvic rotation plays a really big role in what the whole leg does. And so let's review. This came from the pelvic article that I wrote in 2022. Let's review the 8 movements of the pelvis. So the pelvis may seem like this very rigid bowl of a system, but it's actually 2 bones, and the rims of which are what most people call their waist. That's the top here that I'm acting out with these half foam rolls. They connect in the front at the pubic joint, and then in the back, they connect on the sacrum bone here. And so they do 8 little but really important movements. They go up and down, they go in or out and in, respectively here. They go forward and back in the running movement. But what we're working on today is the open or closing, or in this case, external rotation and internal rotation. And the reason those are so important are twofold. Number one, when we run, there's actually a little bit of rotation happening at the pelvis. So when we flex forward, there's actually a little bit of external rotation that occurs at this bone. And it is a subtle movement, but an important one in forming the alignment, but also kind of just winding up our propulsive system. So flexion has external rotation. Then with extension, we get internal rotation. So again, named for the front. So when the leg goes back, the pelvis goes in. So for our max efficiency, max power, we need these little rotations. For our efficiency, we need them too, because if we lose that, the pelvis is the platform to the entire leg. So if I lose rotation, or if I get stuck in a rotation, for example, if I have a fall, and I fall on my pelvis, what can happen is the pelvis can get stuck in external rotation. And what that can do then is take my entire leg and put it into external rotation. And there's this tendency with runners of like, oh, my leg's out, I'm going to turn it in. But we can only really control what's happening at the hip. So I don't want to be torquing at my femur bone when the problem is up in my pelvis bone. So what do we do about that? And in general, that's a big challenge too, because every stretch that we do for our hips doesn't necessarily stretch the pelvis bone itself. because we have this femur that goes into the pelvis, and we have lots of stretches for that, but not necessarily a lot of stretches of the pelvis on the rest of the body. So in the article in part 1, I talk about the importance of releasing the soft tissue. That means we can massage the musculature above the rim, behind. Those are abdominals and some other back muscles. We can also do belly massage with a ball to just free this. But then ultimately, we have to actually move the pelvis itself on the sacrum. And that is a subtle movement at the sacroiliac joint where a lot of the rotation happens. And so what that kind of looks like when you're on the ground doing that rotation exercise is, we can pretend this is my trunk. When we're on the ground reaching a leg, we have one that reaches forward. This one relatively opens. The one that reaches back relatively closes. So you can see a closing on the right and opening on the left. Vice versa, when we reverse that movement, a closing on the left and an opening on the right. So some of you that have pelvic stiffness, like myself, or some of you who have had a fall and things just aren't moving right, when you go on the ground and do the stretch, you may feel some things that feel stiff and stretchy back here at that point, that sacroiliac joint where pelvis meets sacrum. So that's what we're doing. This is a very specialized stretch to open the pelvis, almost independent from the hips. Internal, external rotation. So if you have had a fall history, have an imbalance where it feels like I'm always standing or running like this, or one of my legs, this one can open, this one can't. If you feel like you're imbalanced, or if you feel like you have a constant, stubborn aches, pains in your foot, knee, or hip, try this exercise. It can be really helpful for you.